Hogstye.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Hogstye. It is Alex, it is Steve, it is Dave. Preseason is over, and what a preseason it was. Washington goes 3-0, and it doesn't matter. Shut up, Baltimore. It doesn't matter. Stop it. Stop thinking that matters. Bad Baltimore.
It does not
Bad.
matter. Just remember,
No, it does
Steve
not matter.
Spurrier won 4 preseason games, if I recall.
And won by 100 points or something, yeah.
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 It doesn't matter.
Yes, Osaka, never forget. But overall, preseason was pretty good. Guys, before we get into it, though, let's do our classic vamping that we like to
We
call
don't
out
vamp
now.
on this show. See, it ruins it if you say it,
I thought it made it better if we say it.
No, it does not. It ruins it. It's supposed to flow naturally. Come on, haven't you done this before?
Yeah,
I
for
love
like
it. We're
8 years.
vamping about vamping and hating about the fact that we're
there you
vamping.
go. Thanks for pointing out the obvious.
It's a show about nothing, Dave.
It's Seinfeld.
Yeah. So I will say I had a nightmare because my cell phone died on me this morning. Like, I woke up and it was just dead. Lost all my contacts. I lost all my photos from the last 10 years that were saved on the damn thing.
Like
Which
You
lost,
mean not
lost.
out of
Oh,
batteries? You mean like your phone
Wow.
was deceased.
the logic board and the hard drive failed.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wow.
is any of it recoverable?
Nope.
You don't have
So-
cloud storage and stuff.
I don't like the cloud. I don't
either.
trust the cloud. As
Alex's
somebody who
naked
works in,
pictures are going to leak onto the internet.
that's the one thing I don't have.
Thank God.
Yes.
That's
everyone should
probably
be
what would have
thankful
killed
for
your
that.
phone right there.
Yeah, right.
How does an IT guy not like the cloud? Curious.
I think that's telling, is it not?
yeah, it
Probably, but
a
still.
little bit. Yeah, it's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of paranoia. The one guy whose phone is actually scanned and monitored by the government here.
Oh, mine's
Like the cloud.
Alex. I mean,
Yeah, okay. You
mine's scanned and monitored as well.
sure. That's I
Well,
forgot yours
mine
from.
is by my wife every day, so I'm with you.
That's just because she thinks you're cheating on her.
That's worse than the government. That's worse. But yes,
So you really did lose all your photos and all your everything?
So if you're any of my friends who are listening, and you guys know they are out there, I bet Rick still listens. Does Rick still listen?
I don't know. I
Yeah.
mean, he does repost our stuff sometimes.
He does. So
Alex
guys,
is going to send out a series of who dis.
yeah,
texts.
I'm gonna be sending out a lot of who dis. If you want to just tweet me or text me and say, hey, it's X.
Tell you
whoever
what,
it
to
is.
make it easy, everybody just put their contact information on Twitter.
Yeah, and
their
send it to
home
me.
phone numbers and
Yep.
emails and send it to Alex.
Social
at
too.
Alex.
Just it helps. It makes it
Just in case.
makes it easier to track.
Home address, phone number, and email. Put it on Twitter at AlexZeese 35. What is
Alex
it?
35332. It's
Just
the
do
name
that.
Zeus spelt with letters upside down.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Like if you had a calculator, like back in the 80s, remember when people would write hello in the calculator? Yep, same thing.
Gotcha.
That's how I came up with that. So yeah, I had to go to the T-Mobile store, then the Apple store, then back to the Apple store when they fixed my phone, but then they didn't fix it quite right, so I had to find a T-Mobile store. Turns out T-Mobile, the Metro by T-Mobile stores are not T-Mobile stores, and they can't do shit. So I had to go to two of those. Then I went to another T-Mobile store and finally got a phone working. It was a
But
day,
you lost everything though.
but I still lost everything.
Yeah, that stinks.
It does stink. Yeah. So there, Dave, you had something about your ankle you
You
wanted
just
to talk
brought
about.
down the mood. Thanks for that.
Well,
Dave broke
as I
his
was,
ankle.
Well, as I was finishing up, getting the deck ready and the power washing the house and everything, because we're having people coming over and
Mm-hmm.
and I had, my wife was right around the corner. I wanted to call her over to come look at something. She wasn't here because she had her leaf blower going on. So I put the power washer down. I went to step off the deck, which I don't have the steps on just yet.
Uh-oh.
Here we go. So I stepped down, not really realizing how I was stepping down. I rolled right over my ankle.
Oh.
All my weight came right down on it. I tried to walk it off and I couldn't. And I had this table right in front of me and I threw it out of my way so I didn't fall into the table.
Oh, you didn't
Yeah.
Buffalo Bill the table?
No. And so I tried to crawl up to I did almost like a crawl and a walk going up to the patio where my wife was at. Went to sit down, I completely blacked out, and she caught me.
Oh wow.
I wound up blacking out 3 different times, and
Oh wow.
I got a pretty high threshold for pain. And when my wife was telling that to my brother, he was like, "Well, there's a chance he might have broke something, but he's
Yeah, if
usually
you're
pretty
blacking
good
out.
with all that." Yes. So had to go get X-rays. X-rays came out negative, so we're fine with that. But they want me to go to orthopedic to make sure I didn't like tear a ligament or anything like that. So, but
You know, there would have
other
been
than
a
that,
perfect solution to this that could not cause this not to happen, right?
walk into the back door, walk
No,
through the
no, no,
house, like
no.
go out the sliding glass door, say, "Hey, honey."
No, he's gonna say pay somebody.
Well, no, I was going to say assign the work to your worker in your house, which is your wife, and you supervise her. I mean, that's what first came to my mind.
Well, what was actually funny with all that though
How
was
big of
is
a
that the fact
drop? That's my question.
How big of what?
probably
How big of a
probably
step?
maybe what wasn't real high, maybe 2 feet off the
What you
ground.
should have said is
That's it.
after you're done with the leaf blower, do this work and let me know when you're done and I'll come check it. That's
Yeah,
what you
'cause that
should have
would've-
said.
Yeah, because that would have worked
Thanks.
out very well.
Of course
This
it
is
would.
why.
Just tell her I said
This is
it.
why Steve is single.
And of course, my wife had to tell me to sit on the couch and don't move because I was ready to go. Well, I feel better. I'll go back outside and finish. She's like, "No, don't move."
Yeah.
Yeah. Was she your boss? Come on, Dave. Stand up to her.
I tried to. I couldn't.
You
One leg, I
couldn't-
wasn't
you
able
literally
to.
couldn't stand up.
Oh yeah, that's not good. My wife is going to be out of town this weekend. She's going to a wedding without me, which is fantastic because it's a
party at Alex's house.
well, no, the game Starfield's coming out this weekend, so I'm going to be probably logging, let's say 15 hours a day just playing that.
There's a what game is it?
It's a big
Starfield
video
game.
game coming out.
Starfield? Is
Yeah.
that a thing? I mean, in somebody else's head but yours?
Oh yeah, it's a what is it? RPG style open world. You're flying around space, exploring planets, first person shooter. Yeah.
And some people have heard of this. This is not new.
It's the biggest game of the year.
Oh, is it? I've never heard of it.
It's basically No Man's Sky plus RPG.
Okay, that doesn't help me, Dave.
Well, should. Why not?
I've never heard of any of these.
Okay, the guys who made Fallout and Skyrim,
I've never heard of either of those either.
Okay, just the biggest game maker in the world. That's all.
Okay, that's all I need to know. And so you're gonna play this game for 15 straight hours
a day.
That's a lot, man. I don't know how you can do that.
These are the kind of games you probably log 10,000 hours playing. That they're that expensive.
Not me.
No, not you, but people. So my wife's leaving at the perfect time.
I hope your eyes don't melt out of your head.
Oh, they already have.
And they're only making that for the Xbox platform, not for PC, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
125 gigabyte download. It's huge.
That's a lot of gigabytes.
Yeah, it might be the biggest game ever made.
Can't you go to like the store and buy a hard copy of it or something?
No. You got to download it. It's that big. It's massive. There's 1,000 planets in it.
I don't really get the whole video game obsession personally, so I'm not the right person to.
No, well, look, it's a time waster. It's no different than sports. I don't get where my line is. I don't understand watching other people play video games. That's where I don't know.
I'll tell you what. There's people on YouTube who make millions of dollars and Twitch.
I know.
And, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Well, and when I was at what it was the Verizon Center, I don't remember, Cap Arena now. There's now the esports league. They've taken over an old bar next to where the Wizards play, and they've turned it into a little mini arena for like NBA 2K.
See, the worst one is I don't know any names or anything, but I know there's some young women who play these games and they wear skimpy outfits doing it, and that
Right.
I can because guys are idiots for the most part,
Right.
so they're gonna watch that. But I don't understand why anybody watch some big sweaty fat guy play a video game. That I don't get it.
That I've never
understood.
Well, see, what's actually crazy is that I used to play Madden. I get every Madden every year since the first came out.
Oh, sure.
And
Great
I
game
was
back in the day.
I was really, really good at it. And of course having kids, and the wife hated the fact I played so much. I kind of steered away from it. I hold that against her, letting her know, if you didn't steer me away from that game, I could be in these tournaments you see on ESPN.
Yeah.
Because
and
I
not
was
working.
and not working, yes, because I was that good,
And be
I was,
one of the few guys in those tournaments who's ever had sex.
and you're not
That's
wrong.
probably not far from the truth, sadly.
No, it's not. All right, we should
Gone
change
well
gears.
off the rails at this point.
What's
well,
the point
we
of
kind of
talking
steered it
about
back
the
with
team at this
Madden.
point?
Yeah. So preseason done. I don't really remember anything from the final game. I don't know if you guys do, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote a whole column on the preseason just generally. Okay, so let's start with like preseason thoughts here generally.
Yeah,
How about that?
Let's do that. Not
Okay,
final game's stupid.
My column was called "The Good, the Bad, and the Unknown" because that's the way I kind of looked at it. What good happened? What bad happened? What's kind of the unknown issues? So the good to me was Sam Howell was good. The wide receiver group
solid.
was good. Chris Rodriguez and secondary depth. That's what I got. Those four things are the principal things I got that was good out of the preseason. Sam Howell better than I thought he would be. Clearly, for in terms of preseason,
he can
had
play.
it together.
The kid looks like he can play.
At least in this context, who knows how it's going to go in the preseason or in the regular season? But
18 is a lot of games or whatever.
Yeah, but just to throw some numbers out here, so he went 28 for 37 in 3 games, really 2 games, because he didn't play a third one. 28 for 37, 265 yards, 75.7 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns. That's totally unsustainable in the regular season. That's Hall at best quarterback in history numbers. So that's not sustainable. Quarterback rating was around 122. I didn't feel like calculating all of that, but that's about what it was. That's crazy high. So you can't expect those numbers.
Right.
Would anybody care to guess the best quarterback rating for a season for a Redskins quarterback who started at least 13 games in the season?
The best quarterback rating?
Sorry, the best season quarterback rating for any Redskin quarterback in history in which that quarterback started at least 13 games in that season.
Well, considering the fact that when they started doing the quarterback rating, I really think the only answer is Kirk Cousins.
Yeah.
What's your guess, Alex?
Kirk's probably the safe bet, but just to be different, let me go with Joey T.
It was Robert Griffin.
Really?
2011, 102.4.
Okay. I mean, it does make sense because he was running that RPO so well.
Scored a lot of touchdowns.
Yeah.
Okay. So that I think we've beaten Sam Howell to death, to be perfectly honest, on this show. The wide receiver group,
as advertised.
And I think Jahan Dotson was probably more than advertised.
I could see that. Like I've had high expectations for him. I know Dave thinks
I did too, but I think it was a bit of a coming on a little bit, especially in that second game, because he was 7 for 76 or something like that. Yeah.
He had a very.
And I don't know if
game.
the football world, we've all said, Dave said, all of us have said, but I don't know if the world saw it before now. So I think that, and the other one was De'Ami Brown, looked like a new man, in at least in that last game he played, or the second game rather.
I would also point to even looking at that final game there. I keep on saying fourth game, but it's 3 games now. Like these guys who were all fighting for that last spot all performed pretty darn well that last game. They have found a lot of decent receivers to back up. Let's be honest, 3 really good starters. They're not all Pro Bowlers, but any of these guys could be a 1,000-yard guy.
Well, and they even found some guys at the back of the roster. Mitchell Tinsley.
Yeah.
He came out of nowhere. I'll say so Chris Rodriguez.
Yeah.
6th round draft pick. He could have failed. Washington's brought in 6th round draft pick running backs that have been cut. Who was the kid from anyway, the school in New Jersey. Regardless,
Yeah.
he averaged 7.2 yards per carry in the preseason. 17 carries, 122 yards. That is outstanding. Again, not sustainable in the regular season, but came out kind of out of nowhere. So I thought he was very, very good. I thought he was the brightest spot of all the rookies. Would have been him in my view.
Of all the rookies, yeah.
Rookies.
Now, I would say offensively, he was not my brightest spot or biggest surprise. To me,
Okay.
that was Turner, the tight end.
Could
I
be.
think,
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. I was talking about rookies, but yeah.
Sure. He's coming in his second year. He's a very young player. So I thought Cole Turner really surprised me throughout preseason. Just as a good, solid pass catching, yard or chain moving type tight end. Like if he can be that number 2 guy, I think we'll be in much better shape at tight end than I ever thought we would be.
Right. I think you guys are leaving out the obvious here. Dax Milne, this whole process, man, has been absolutely fantastic. Never mind.
Dave,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Nah, but seriously, I mean, you guys kind of covered the basis on everything, so I'll kind of shoot a little bit onto the line. I mean, the line, maybe smoke and mirrors, maybe not. I thought the line played pretty well in the preseason, but I think that was more due to the fact of what Bieniemy was doing, the mobility with Sam Howell. But I think I want to point out Cosme. I think Cosme did a really nice job at right guard. I think from his scouting report, they talked about how he'd probably be a much better interior lineman. You've had Louis Riddick talk about Sam Cosme and others talk about Sam Cosme, saying that he's probably his best attribute is probably interior on the guard. And I think we saw that a little bit. I mean, he was consistent, he was strong, and he's athletic. He's got the athletic means to be a guard. So I thought, I saw that. I was pretty impressed by that. The De'Ami Brown too really stood out for me. I mean, I'm not gonna go down the whole Jahan Dotson deal. I've beaten that enough already. Guys probably tired of me talking about him, but De'Ami Brown I do agree with on that one.
You and your weird Penn State obsession.
Hey, listen, man. When we got good players, we got good players. You can't deny it.
When you support a school that loves child molesters, I guess you got to stick with it.
Hey, man, that's how the receivers learn how to run. You know what I mean? Come on.
Exactly. They got to run from the child molester.
But, lean into it, Dave. Lean into it.
So yeah, De'Ami Brown looks like he's ready to take that next step. To what level, I don't know, but I think it looks like he's going to be a little more consistent. Plus, I think the comfort level with Al really works out to his advantage too as well. And Turner, of course, has been really, really good. He's been finding the areas to get open for Hal whenever he's had to scramble. He's been playing the ball very, very well. I like to see Bates really kind of start stepping up a little bit more, not necessarily as just a receiver, but as an all-around tight end, because I think we really have a decent chance of having 2 quality tight ends in those 2 guys until we find that one elite guy down the road that can be like a Kelsey or somebody. I think those 2 guys are serviceable together. So
I had 2 more, actually not 1 more. Secondary depth. This isn't a surprise, given the amount of resources they put into the secondary. But I thought, the back of the roster guys, including some of the guys they cut, like I thought Chase Whitaker did well. They cut him anyway. Christian Holmes kind of came out of nowhere, 7th round draft pick, made the roster.
He was here last year though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, last season. I mean, but he's made the roster, 7th round pick. That's beating the odds in and of itself. Jartavius Martin had an interception and a bunch of bad plays. He was a bit shaky, I thought. But I thought it was again. It's weird because like their safety group, there's not a lot of stars. They found a lot of guys who shouldn't be that good, who are pretty good at safeties. Cam Curl, Derek Forrest, Jeremy Reeves. All these guys are a bit off the beaten path. So
I also found it interesting that Martin they have listed as a safety.
Yeah.
Kind of wonder maybe they're trying to maybe get that role
Well,
Maybe they
role for
realize
him
he
on
kind
that.
of sucks at coverage.
yeah, on the team's own site now, he's listed as just defensive back, not one or the
Okay.
other.
I moved him to say I haven't published our updated roster.
Yeah.
Well, I got round to it, but I have him listed as a safety at it because he's got to go somewhere.
Sure. I mean, look, it seems like when they drafted him, they said he's going to kind of play that slot safety hybrid role that they are obsessed with. Anyway, even though he's not particularly big, that's what they like him for.
Right.
So yeah, like, and he had a quite not a one game, but a preseason overall himself. He had that great pick that was right in front of the seats I was sitting in. It was like smack dab. I could see the blades of grass level.
The seats you were sitting in mean Dave's seats?
Yeah.
Okay, just
I
curious.
was kind of setting Dave up for that, but
Well, I was letting you have your moment. That's fine.
And
but yeah, I thought, I think they impressed. I'm still just as worried about linebacker as I was preseason.
we'll get to
before
linebacker, so we're
Yeah.
getting to that. The last one I
Wait.
have for a pot. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, the one thing I was going to mention though, when I look at the defensive line group, I know our defense line is our strength, but I think when you look at it from top to bottom, this might be the deepest we've seen as defensive line.
It better be.
Ever.
There's 100 of them on the freaking roster.
No, I get that, but I mean, over the years we've always had a bunch of role player here and there brought in as a free agent, whatever. But
True.
I mean, these guys, for the most part, are homegrown talents. They all seem to be. They look like they have an effective role in this group. And Andre Jones was one guy. Now, granted, he did everything mostly against the second team, third team offenses he went against, but he seemed like he was comfortable out there, as in he had a fluid to him. He seemed like he could be a pretty decent developmental player.
When I watched him play, I thought he was more of a 3-4 linebacker style guy.
Mhm.
Maybe that's just me, or maybe it's just he's wearing like a linebacker number, not a lineman number, so it threw me off. But
Yeah,
That
the
makes
48.
yeah,
Could be that.
it could be just that. But he's also smaller. He's only 258, looking at his official weight. So he's on the smallish side.
I had as the last good to come out was attitude. It's just intangible a little bit, but no, winning preseason games doesn't matter. But they did seem to have sort of a collective winning attitude towards them. Not towards it. They had a good collective winning attitude that has not been present for a long, long, long time. Those guys did care about winning these games. And so in that respect, it matters a little bit that they kind of came together. And so I thought, yeah, it's intangible, but I thought that's something I noticed. Let's say it like that.
Yeah.
Now, my question to you though is, I mean, because I agree with what you just said. Is that one thing that's going to make you look a little more into Bieniemy going forward in terms of maybe he might have a little something as head coach? I'm going to pay a little more attention to how this team goes going forward because I'm not saying that he's a head coach. I'm just saying that it kind of checks that box maybe a little bit, possibly going forward, maybe.
Not really. I think the fan base has gone gaga over Eric Bieniemy for a weird reason. I mean, the other guy was really bad, and so Eric Bieniemy's proven. I get that, but there's a reason the guy hasn't been a head coach.
Yeah.
He's interviewed a billion times and never gotten a job. He's not a head coach here. He's doing the same exact job here as he was doing in Kansas City. I mean, he's probably a pretty good offensive coordinator, but do I think he's like the head coach in waiting? Not necessarily. No.
Well, not necessarily in waiting. I'm just saying, I mean, maybe there might be something there going forward.
I think it's a combination of a lot of things. One, the dark cloud of the tiny tyrant is gone.
That's huge.
That all by itself was
a
cloud was lifted.
Fans poured back in.
Yeah. So I just think it's a mix of conflict circumstance. Yeah, I think Eric Bieniemy's offense probably is giving these guys a bit of a attitude boost. But on the other hand, people were whining about how hard he was on players too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, I think the fan base is giving Eric Bieniemy a bit too much credit just because they're so desperate for a guy who's a winner.
Well, we don't know if this motivation is coming from him or elsewhere. Honestly,
No.
like
Right.
what I think it's fair to say Bieniemy's doing is he is trying to put a lot of pressure on guys to get things right in preseason, because that seems to be what everyone's saying. More pressure than they're used to, and that seems to be working out well for the offense. It's helping.
I mean, so far, it's hard to really tell. I mean, there's certain aspects of the offense I was not impressed with. Starting running game basically sucked. Chris Rodriguez didn't start.
Right.
The starting running back sucked. So the bad, to me, Dave, I think sounds like you disagree with me on this, but the offensive line was not good. I didn't think. The starters did not play very long. That first game, they were a train wreck. It was a little bit better in the second game, but remember, I mean, the starting defensive line did not game plan. We're not playing aggressively. It was just preseason. I think the offensive line is and will be a train wreck. That will be the downfall of the offense if it goes down.
It's not that I disagree with you. I just saw certain elements of it where they weren't too bad. That's why I said it's probably more or less just smoke and mirrors, or probably just the way that right now, how it's being schemed right now to include defensive coordinators on the other side. They're not scheming at all. It's just Cosme was the only one that really kind of stood out to saying that he might be something in the guard spot. I mean, because we have nothing at the left guard, and we have average tackles at the outside. Trust me, I agree with you. That's why.
Okay.
As I've been doing my schedule breakdown this year, one of my biggest things has been on every single article.
Offensive
line, offensive line.
Yeah.
So. No, yeah, I'm totally on board 100% on that one. Absolutely.
Next one I had was the linebackers. Obviously, that's another train wreck.
Yeah.
I mean, the linebacker group is embarrassing, really.
I mean, there's only 4 guys in here, which is
and none of them are quality starters. I mean, Jamin Davis the closest, I guess. But I am, my mind is just, I'm at a loss for words at how Ron Rivera and Jack Del Rio can end up with such a atrociously bad linebacker group.
Yeah. So Davis, Cody Barton are obviously going to be your main 2 guys, right? And then you've got just David Mayo and Khaleke Hudson, who, okay, they both have little roles they should be playing on any team, but you don't want to major in that necessarily.
I mean, how, in what universe is that a linebacker group on an NFL team?
It's ridiculous. The only thing that would make any sense to me is if this whole 5-2 defense they want to run is way more like a 34 in the end. And so these are all your inside guys. And then you're really just using your ends as edge rushers like you would in a 34 defense.
Either way, they need linebackers who can actually play.
Oh, I know. It's not going to work. They unless they had a stud back there, like, a London Fletcher type linebacker who could just control the middle of the field.
At this point, they need to maybe look at trying to re-sign him.
And
I don't know if he has legs.
And that's why I think Jabril Cox is going to be on game 1. He'll be on the field.
Mr. Practice Squatter.
I don't care. I really don't care if he's still hurt from the injuries he's recovering from, whatever. He's better than Mayo.
Yeah. And for those who don't know what Dave's referring to, the news came out today that Jabril Cox was signed by Washington to their practice squad.
Right.
He was with the Cowboys for 2 years, I guess?
Maybe they should cut one of the 85 off defensive linemen they have and bring him on as a linebacker on the active roster. How about that thought, kids?
I mean, I think you will get a lot of fans arguing with you that, these are all good young linemen. They're all fine. Trade one then. Get something for them.
Really?
You got 4 guys in the last year of their contract, or 5 guys in the last year of their contract. That's trade bait.
They can't afford to move one of them anyway, because offenses are going to continuously get those 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5 first down completions on the intermediate zone. So they got to have that rotation on a defensive line to keep them somewhat fresh through the game. I mean, every single one of these defensive linemen are going to want to having to play because of the first downs that our linebackers are going to keep giving up throughout the year.
I think that's true. And at the same time, I look at it, you could do a very healthy rotation at defensive end with 5 guys and not 7.
Oh, sure, I get you, but I mean, when you have
Yeah.
Mayo, your number 3 guy, though, I don't know.
Yeah, it's not great.
No,
The
it's
Cox
not.
thing is interesting. If he can be healthy, I think he was a pretty effective guy. With the Dallas Cowboys, I feel like,
Um,
or he
next
was gonna be.
the next bet I had was Jacoby Brissett. Now, he's a journeyman quarterback, and he played like a journeyman quarterback in the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
23 for 36, 63.9% completion percentage, 218 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. In that he did play some in 3 games. I mean, that's not good, especially with the 2 interceptions. I mean, he showed kind of that he's a journeyman. He can come in and be okay. That's kind of what we learned about Jacoby Brissett, and he didn't step up, I think, really in any way. He didn't show anybody that he's really worthy of being a plus level starter.
I mean,
no thoughts at all.
Nah. I mean, if he's what you go to after Sam Howell somehow fails, then you're pretty much tanking at that point anyway for a new quarterback, and you're
That's
probably
why
getting a
some
new head
people.
coach.
That's why some people were kind of surprised. Well, not so really surprised, but were kind of hoping that Fromm actually would have made the roster and would cut Brissett, but they were never going to cut Brissett.
They can't do that.
That wasn't going to happen. I know that.
Yeah.
But I mean, because Fromm actually I was surprised. He actually had a good preseason. He looked
okay.
he looked like a pretty decent backup quarterback out there. It's just, in any other games I've ever seen him play in the past with Giants or whomever, I've always seen a quarterback that was always just, he didn't belong on the field. But this year, it looked like he kind of belonged on the field. I was
He did fine for he played his role.
Yeah, absolutely.
What I would say about Fromm from when I was watching him at training camp, because I picked up on a couple of things with him pretty quick. One, he might have the strongest arm of the 3, just pure arm strength. He's got a cannon, but he made some of the most glaring mental mistakes that day I was out there, like just completely throwing it to the other team, not being able to read anything downfield, that kind of stuff. So I think he is appropriately a 3rd quarterback in the NFL. I don't know if I would have taken him over Brissett like some people want.
No, I wouldn't have either.
I think that's crazy. The last negative I had was Chase Young. I mean, we've talked about him on the show before. He's going into this 4th year of his contract. They didn't take an extension on him. He's been hurt. He played badly last year. He played very, very little in this preseason. Didn't show anything. Got a sting. Didn't show anything when he was on the field. The guy is shaping up to be a bust. Let's just say it like that. He's got a year to prove himself, but right now he's about to be a bust.
We could say that, and then if he gets 2 sacks versus Arizona, we'll be all very happy. But
I'm not taking any amount of success as being overly whelming great against that Arizona team. I'll hold off for the following week.
That is also fair. That is
okay.
Do they even have a quarterback they're playing? Or are they just gonna try and run the old school 1920s 5 running backs in the backfield at all times kind of or offense?
Yeah, they might do that.
Yeah,
run a little bit of wildcat.
Yeah.
The unknowns I had, the return game. So this is where Casimir Allen comes into play.
Yep.
So Casimir Allen, Dave said it last week, and I agreed with him. He had the return job locked up. After week 2, he had the return job locked, and then week 3 happened, and the Bengals game.
Yep.
And he fumbled a punt return because he was not paying attention. He dropped multiple balls.
Yep.
And played himself completely off the roster. Got signed to the practice squad, but Ron Rivera's dumb. Ron Rivera should have kept him as the 7th receiver, like dedicated return man. But because Ron is a terrible drafter and just horrible at that kind of thing, he didn't. and now they're stuck with Dax Milne, who's god awful at returning. There's your
Yeah.
returner. Makes no sense, and but again, it's Ron Rivera, so what can you expect?
Yeah, that one did disappoint me. That one roster move in particular. They've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 receivers, and you're telling me that Casimir Allen won't give you more value than like the seventh guy?
I think it's a matter of like Milne is a draft pick, so there you go.
You could have released Milne. He ain't going anywhere. No one's knocking on your door to trade for him.
I'm just telling you. I mean, they're going to probably prioritize the draft picks when they can.
Yeah, I understand that logic, but
the only good side of this is that Allen is on the practice squad, which means he can be activated.
True.
From the practice squad for games. So there's that. So we'll see. But so that was an unknown, and then my last unknown was just a future. And this is just a reminder that winning preseason games means absolutely nothing.
Yep.
I thought there was good, like we already talked about, but don't take this as a sign that Washington's on its way back to the Super Bowl because it doesn't mean that.
Yeah.
So that was
preseasons
my
are
preseason.
About growth.
Yeah.
It's about, you want to see individual players do things and be like, oh, I didn't know that could be a thing. That's fantastic. We talked about Turner. We talked about Rodriguez. You want a couple guys on the back end to surprise you and make you think they can contribute. That's the key to every preseason. Is you got to find 6 guys like that, I feel like, on either side of the ball.
Right.
Everyone's got to play.
And in fact, that was part of my discussion that I had on Twitter today, was around Dax Milne, punt return, and I talked about how the importance of it, and I'm being told, well, he's got reliable hands. Well, reliable hands is not nearly as important as field position. Field position is critical in this game, and that's what your punt returns, your kick returners do. And we had that with DeAndre Carter for a little bit, and then I'm like, well, DeAndre Carter only averaged a half a yard more than Milne did. I'm just when when he was here, but the point is that Carter actually had meaningful returns that we remember. He may not have returned everything for 20 yards,
right?
But he flipped the field on occasion. He flipped the field. When's the last time Dax Milne did that? I think
that
maybe
would be never.
None.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah. Done.
And exactly, and part of what and the comment I had gotten was, it was like, oh well, with all the offensive line help we need, could you imagine focusing your draft on a punt returner? I'm like, no, that's what the back end of the draft is for. You get developmental guys that can contribute on the special teams, and that's where you find that potential returner. That's where you find that explosive guy that can flip the field for you. Gibbs was fantastic at that, and that's and Ron Rivera doesn't. Now, granted, the coverage side we've been very good. He's done a good job of getting those guys in place. I mean, I won't complain about that. We've had some good coverage units out there under Ron Rivera.
We've had good coverage units for like a decade.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's been a strength of this team for a long time. Yeah.
But we just cannot get that returner that can flip the field position on a consistent basis, or at least get the threat of it anyway. And I think some people just underestimate that and see, and Steve and I grew up in an era but we watched an era of football where the importance of that was put in place. Washington had some of the best special teams in the NFL, and part of that is our return game. When you punted the ball down inside the 20, 15-yard line, guess what? We're getting pushed back out to the 40, 45. But with Dax Milne, you punt inside. No, you punt inside the 15 on Dax Milne, he's getting out to the 21. I mean, come on, that's just whatever.
Yeah, and look, there are other factors in this. We all know the kick return game is just not as important as it used to be, which is a shame. But it really is.
You
all
are
about
right
punts.
there,
yeah. So I think that we all are kind of on the same page, other than maybe you guys disagreeing on the O-line situation.
Yeah, we were. Sounds like we were closer than what we originally thought, though.
Yeah. The wild thing that happened this week, though, really, was this whole thing that came out in SI, this article about Rivera, and the whole how did Sam Howell become a starter question. And it's a great article. There's good stuff from Bieniemy and from Howell in there. But everyone got hyper focused like they do about something Rivera says early on where he regrets not having identified basically Sam Howell could be a starter earlier rather than the last preseason or the last game of the season. Maybe he should have played him versus Cleveland or earlier than that, even something along those lines. One, people can pick apart everything. It's just because you all need to go on a vacation, go get laid, something. Come back to this team with a fresh set of eyes, a happier outlook on life, because you all have Dan Snyder PTSD, all of you. Even the national media who don't cover it day to day have Dan Snyder PTSD, it seems like, with this team.
How could a coach play an unheralded rookie while a team is still in the playoff hunt?
Right. That's one thing, sure.
Right.
That's a fair question. That's a big risk.
And that's actually something I believe Rivera alluded to too as well, is that they were in a playoff push. So the last thing on his mind was getting basically a fifth round rookie out there to play.
Right.
You brought in Wentz for this situation, which backfired on you. Heineke was serviceable, and he helped get you in. He helped push you into the playoffs and almost beat Tampa Bay a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. So it was there for him not to even think about putting Howell in there. Reasonably so, too.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to defend Ron Rivera at all. I think in that one instance, yeah, that's a bit of an unfair criticism, but I don't think Ron Rivera is a very good coach. I don't think he's a very good GM. His success at Carolina came on the back of a league MVP level quarterback in Cam Newton.
Yeah,
and an elite defense
evaluations,
right, and defense and a Hall of Fame tight end.
Yeah,
his talent, his draft strategy's been atrocious.
Yeah,
his atrocious draft strategy. He's left glaring holes in the roster. He doesn't call. Pat McAfee talked about this a little bit, and Dave sent in a video around on our internal chat room chat group chat. Pointed out he doesn't call plays on offense or defense. Doesn't win. Drafts poorly. I think Ron needs to be fired personally.
I think there's still a very good chance he's gone at the end of the season, regardless. I listening to the McAfee thing, I kind of agree with McAfee that it does feel like Ron's lost his fastball, or maybe he's a little burned out.
I don't think he ever had a fastball.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a Clayton Kershaw fastball. He's got like a number 4 starter's fastball.
Yeah. Historically, you mean? Yes.
Yeah.
He had a knuckleball that worked once in 2015.
A knuckleball.
Yes. Tim Wakefield.
There you go.
Ain't nothing wrong with a nice knuckleballer.
So I guess I can kind of, I don't know. You guys are telling me that I guess there's been a push to fire Rivera push in the Twitter Illuminati, I guess.
This has done it. And what was the last stupid thing he said that made people freak out? Every time he says something that he's trying to just be casual and candid, people freak the hell out.
Now, I say what he does have is he does have leadership ability. Mm-hmm. The players respect him, but that doesn't mean he's a great coach, right. Overall. Right. So I think that's kind of what we saw in Carolina. They respected him up till the end. They treated him right. Even when they fired him, they treated him with respect. Yeah. And that's I don't think he's not a stand-up guy. He's a stand-up guy. But
no, he's a high-class individual.
And here in D.C., on top of that, he is over his head a little bit as the GM, and he doesn't have time to be the GM really if he's being a head coach. Even though they're all doing this, he's kind of like Joe Gibbs reborn a little bit. Because Gibbs and Gibbs 2 wasn't calling any plays at all either.
Right.
He was just kind of managing the whole thing. So I don't know. No, of course they shouldn't fire him now, but I think he's on his way out.
This was the style of Coach Dan Snyder decided he loved because of Gibbs, and I think you could probably make the Shanahan's argument as well that they were that kind of. Dan Snyder hired Rivera because he's like, I need a CEO style coach. He didn't want X's and O's guys. He didn't want player coaches. he hired Rivera to do this initially, to be this. I'm just going to stand on the sidelines and chew gum and look kind of angry, but not kind of, never say anything.
I mean,
Yeah.
his biggest fault have been his draft strategies. Just the worst.
I think that's one of
It's-
many things he's done wrong. Sure.
Yeah.
The draft strategy's not been great.
We
like
could
I
go
said,
on forever about these draft picks he's wasted.
Yeah. He is not good at identifying offensive talent. They've fallen into a couple guys here and there who are decent.
Now there was somebody that made a comment on Twitter. It was kind of interesting. I mean, I doubt it's even remotely even a possibility, but Josh Harris sitting in the background with not necessarily a GM in waiting in terms of evaluating the team and what's being done, but having a few people kind of sitting and talking in his ear behind the scenes, evaluating how everything is going and probably will be through the year, which kind of makes a little bit of sense because I don't think Josh Harris is really going to enter this year with his own personal evaluation, with with everything going on, and I think Ron Rivera will be under that microscope, and I think he's going to wind up falling flat on his face, unfortunately, for a guy that I think I don't know. I can't just give him the thumbs up on him being a head coach. I mean, it's just too hard to do that. I mean, he went to Super Bowl in the back of, like you said, a all-pro tight end. With a Hall of Fame linebacker, with an MVP quarterback, and a defense that had 28 I think it was 28 interceptions that year, or 28 turnover total, or something like that. I mean, everything just aligned absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Well, look, so it's like
Harris is surrounded by GM and, those types of guys. The whole Harris Blitzer sports group. They have a bunch of guys who are, like you said, are in his ear, who are going to be quietly watching what's going on and giving him advice. And I think that overall they probably have decent, sports minds in that team who can advise. I know they're all more basketball and hockey focused, but, it ain't that hard to say this guy's a good coach or not, sport to sport, right? You can identify what makes a good leader.
And he has been in the room with Howie Roseman. He's been near Howie Roseman. He knows Howie Roseman, everything about Howie Roseman. Right now, Howie Roseman is arguably the best general manager in the NFL, period. Mm-hmm. With the way that he's, with his second stint in Philadelphia, there is no way that what he saw in Philadelphia and what he knows in Howie Roseman, that he's going to be remotely satisfied with what he sees right here in Washington. There is just no way in my mind that he can be even remotely comfortable with that going after this year.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I don't know who they would go after. I'm sure you would say probably Howie's number 2 there in Philly, or somebody like that.
Yeah, I named it before. I can't remember. I forget the name on top of my head.
Yeah, you brought that guy up several times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but I don't know, man. It's gonna be an interesting season. You hope for the best, but you can also see how this could go wrong very quickly. We haven't really talked about the 53-man roster. I guess my first question to both of you about the cut day now that it's over. Any big surprises to you?
No, not really. Not surprises. Again, I already mentioned Casimir Allen. I thought they should have kept him.
Yeah, that's the one that stood out to me right away.
Yeah, but not too much on the rest of this. I thought maybe Bryson Tremaine might have had a shot at the I was hoping beyond hope that maybe you get rid of Dax Milne and bring on somebody like Tremaine, or Allen. That didn't happen. Tight ends, there was no surprise on the tight ends. Yeah. Offensive line, no surprises. We've already talked about that.
You kind of wish they've been scouting the waiver wire a little bit for some better depth.
Well, that and linebackers, my God.
Yeah.
Like when the Bengals dropped or released Trent Taylor. He was one of the top punt returners in the league the last couple of years. I was a surprise cut by them. I mean, you can't tell me that Dax Milne is that much more reliable with hands as a receiver than him.
And
he's not.
I mean,
didn't the Texans release a good punt returner too? I think.
Oh,
they
Desmond
did.
King, you're talking about?
Yeah, isn't he
Yeah.
pretty good? Yeah,
He's a pretty good corner too, as well.
yeah. Multiple good punt returners that were released.
Yeah.
Not as many good linemen. Good linemen don't just walk off teams.
No.
You know, most coaches know a good offensive lineman. You don't get rid of them.
Mostly, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that makeup of the defense with what is it? 7 defensive ends.
4 defensive tackles.
Yeah, four defensive tackles. That's pretty normal if you're running a.
That's still
4th,
11 defensive linemen.
Yeah, yeah. It's nuts.
It's crazy.
It's insane. Yeah.
I was surprised that they kept all those people. And just incidentally, an example of Ron Rivera's just tragedy as a drafter. I mean, Phil Mathis, never going to play. Was 2nd round pick, never going to play, never going to see the field.
Quite honestly, even though I have my issues with Ridgeway and the mistakes he made that lost us a couple games last year, he's a very good defensive tackle. He's your number 3 right now.
Yeah.
Just remember the name, Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, you're right. You keep saying it, preaching to the choir, brother. We've already talked about the linebackers. That's a disaster. We've talked about corners. Nobody who got cut there was all that interesting, and special teams. So that's my quick take on the roster cuts.
The safety group's really good though.
Yeah.
You know, we focus a lot on the corners, but that quartet of safeties is very solid through and through.
No, yeah, absolutely. I do like that.
Yeah.
And then practice squad stuff. So the practice squad is, for those of you who don't know,
I got it here if you need it.
I got it. Jake Fromm, Derek Gore, running back, Alex Armagh, who's a fullback, Bryson Train, Casimir Allen, the receivers, Mason Brooks, Nolan Loftonberg, Jarrett Jones-Smith, they were all in, Alex Akinbulu, they were all with the team last year on the practice squad. Yep. Benning Potato, that's not his real name, it's some Samoan name, but Benning Potato, which is more fun. William Bradley King, Jabril Cox, who's the interesting one, DeJohn Harris, Treat Castro-Fields, Nick Whiteside, Terrell Burgess. There's your practice squad. Jabril Cox is obviously the interesting name on there.
Yeah. I'm glad they kept William Bradley King just in case one of these defensive ends get hurt and they need to add another defensive end.
Certainly, they need more defensive ends.
Yeah, that's the concern. Before we get out of here, I think we got to talk about the 2 big NFL stories going on. Jonathan Taylor. What is wrong with Indianapolis? How do you, one, get to a point where you're talking about trading your best player, not even one of your best players, the best player on your team, and then 2, you couldn't find a trade partner, so now he's faked an injury, so you have to put him on PUP or something. I don't get it. You know, hangnail, you got to sit for 6 weeks.
They're one of those teams that were down with Washington as just disaster train wreck teams.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And it shows.
Well, they had that Peyton Manning deodorant for a couple of years that helped them. You know.
A little bit, yeah.
Well, it did. Though I would argue you had the best quarterback for a generation and you got 1 Super Bowl out of it. You kind of fell short for what you should have gotten with Peyton Manning.
A little
in
bit.
my mind.
Yes. That's not unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's just an absolute travesty out there in Indianapolis. I mean, you have I understand running backs, they can be replaced and you can find them. They're almost a dime a dozen half the time, but this is Jonathan Taylor right here. I mean, this is your heart and soul of your offense. You know, you have Anthony Richardson out there as a young quarterback who probably shouldn't be starting week 1. He should be taking more time for development. Who's he handing the ball off? Deion Jackson? Deion Jackson,
yeah.
I mean, he's a nice player, but he's not Jonathan Taylor. I mean, you're killing your young quarterback. Yeah, by every means necessary, you should be making Jonathan Taylor happy.
Yep.
Giving him that contract that you can afford to give him, for crying out loud right now. You know, make him happy, make Richardson's life easier, you know, and go on and draft and have yourself in a position to draft Marvin Harrison Jr. next year and round out that offense.
Having a guy like Taylor in your backfield, who he's just going to take all the focus away from Richardson, who very athletically gifted,
Right.
type of quarterback. I just don't see it. Like, you could be causing nightmares for people with like an RPO style offense or whatever you want to do.
Sure.
With a young quarterback who's just able to do that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's not.
Why would you want to do that? Apparently.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, with the tiny tire going, someone's got to be the worst owner in the NFL, right?
He's down there with them for sure.
Yeah. And I think the concern with Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong, it's really that, he's not the dual threat running back that, people really want these days to pay, the Christian McCaffreys of the world. But what did he have? 1,800 yards last year? No, not last year.
No.
Yeah.
I just closed the window on it already.
He got hurt last year, right?
He had like 891 yards, I think it was last year before he got hurt. Something like that.
Yeah. But still a very good year for him. Just
averaged 4.5 yards carry.
Yeah. Not going to complain about that.
No.
With a garbage O-line and a terrible quarterback situation.
Yeah,
he was. By the way, Anthony Richardson sucks. Okay, he's going to be a bust. He sucks. Just for the record,
he's not ready, but they're going to force him. Yeah,
they're forcing that. Yeah, Taylor's 2 years removed from 1,800 yards. So, and I don't know. Yeah, it's just dumb. Whatever.
Yeah, it is a bit dumb. It is, but was Richardson drafted? Yeah, he was a first-round pick. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was like number 5 or something like that.
Yeah, 4? I just checked 4. That's nuts. Who like, he's a project. He really is. Yeah, the Colts are going to be a mess. All right, so let's talk about the other thing that's just insane. The 49ers giving up on Trey Lance.
Why is that insane?
Well, it's insane that Kyle Shanahan just loves to trade all these draft picks for quarterbacks and then give up on them. It's become a little bit of an MO with him, if you know what I mean.
A very smart person who did a quarterback draft analysis, told you that Trey Lance was going to be a bust. Told you he was not worth a first-round pick.
His floor was so low because he was so inexperienced. I get it.
Well, I mean, and you could just look at him and knew he wasn't ready. Even I, who don't know anything, doesn't know anything, knew he wasn't ready.
Yes.
And that one of the dumber moves I've seen in a while. And somebody in our comment section committed to Robert Griffin. No. Robert Griffin had a Pro Bowl season.
Sure.
He busted after that, but there was no comparison to what Robert Griffin did versus what Trey Lance did, which was be nothing but an absolute holocaust. That's a terrible analogy. That's terrible.
No.
An absolute train wreck.
Yes,
train wreck. Yeah.
The comparison only really works in that you traded up ridiculous amounts of draft capital to get both guys.
Yeah, but you got one Pro Bowl season out of one of them and nothing but a mess out of the other.
Yeah. Did they even get like 10 starts out of Trey Lance? I don't think they even got to 10.
Yeah.
They didn't even try. It's nuts.
And he got replaced by
Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah.
Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not even healthy necessarily, and they got rid of him anyway.
Yeah.
By the way. Yeah. For a 4th round pick to the Dallas Cowboys, who have an all-pro quarterback of their own.
Well, I'm rooting for Trey Lance to trick Jerry Jones into liking him more than Dak. At least, for a couple games versus Washington.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind that.
Yeah. I would take that over Dak any day.
I don't know what Dallas thinks they're going to do with him.
I don't know. Dallas has been doing weird stuff at quarterback behind Dak Prescott for a while now.
Jerry Jones thinks he's smarter than everybody else.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a Jerry thing or if this is a...
Everything's a Jerry thing with that franchise.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, you're probably right. Because it was Will Greer before this, and they love to get those guys who are drafted high and bust to be their number 2. Meanwhile, Cooper Rush is sitting there being, a very decent quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter to them. Yeah. Oh, those poor, stupid Cowboys. When will they learn? Just trust the guy you've already got in there who's good.
But this is their year.
Yeah.
It is every year their year.
Yeah, I know. This is their year.
Their year to finish.
I mean, there's a
9 or
method to the
10
madness.
wins.
I mean, the media is an objective, and the media is trying to drive
Yeah.
ratings by talking about the popular teams. And so what do? Pimp the Cowboys, pimp the Patriots, teams like
Yeah,
that.
I get it.
Washington's, one of the least popular teams in the league, so they're not going to pimp Washington.
At least the Patriots, it's warranted, though, given their recent success. The Cowboys have been as bad as Washington for about as long in terms of Super Bowls.
I get it, but who are they going to talk about? Washington and the Colts, or are they going to talk about Dallas?
I would just talk about the Packers. That's who I would have picked for most of the, They're only
Packers
the most beloved franchise,
They're going to be going through a transition too. Aaron Rodgers is gone.
Yep. It's not often that we see that. If I feel like the Packers suddenly becoming bad for a while,
we don't know if they're going to be bad. I mean,
we don't know.
We'll find that out soon enough.
Yeah. Yep. All right, guys, that should wrap up this week's episode. I feel like.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna go and start downloading that game because it's gonna take 3 days. Yeah. All right, guys. You all take care. Enjoy the what do we call this week? The week between preseason and
the dead week.
Yeah, the dead week. Enjoy the dead zone.
Our next show will be a game preview.
Yeah, game preview with no game recap, which is always fun.
Which is weird.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, guys. We'll talk to you next week. Later.
Take it easy. Later.